also want to be sure to thank my collaborators on this research. So I'm going to be talking about a lot of different research. I won't have time to signal the various researchers themselves independently, but just assume that all of this work is done in collaboration with others, even if I don't specifically call them out. So I'm very interested in physical spaces, like, and I've done a lot of work on things like dorm rooms. I think dorm rooms are particularly interesting if you are interested in space in the way I am, and how people make use of that space and how that reflects what they're like. Because if you think about these two dorm rooms, these are two dorm rooms here at the University of Texas, if you think about these two dorm rooms, on the first day of the semester, these would have looked identical. You would have thought it was the same photo twice. Okay, yet just a few weeks after semester has started, they look very different. And they look very different because, right, we can be causal here, because of the occupants of those rooms. So I'm really interested in how these sorts of things, how we affect those spaces, and in turn, perhaps how those spaces may come to affect us. Now, I've also looked at other sorts of spaces. In addition to living spaces, we've done a bit of work in office spaces. Cubicles are quite similar to bedrooms, to the dorm rooms, in the sense that most people are given almost exactly the same space to work with, and then they do different things with those spaces that reflect various elements of their personalities. And this raises the question of how. What are the processes by which we affect the spaces in which we live and work? And we've talked about a number of these, and some of these I think you'll see the connections with some of the things that David Cantor was talking about just now. So the first is what I call identity claims. Identity claims are deliberate statements we make about ourselves to others. It's a communicative function. So we do that in lots of forms. So if you walk around college, you will see people with all, this college here, this university, you'll see people with things on their t-shirts or sweaters or whatever it is, underneath their raincoats. They will tell you their bands they like, the colleges they're associated with. Here in the States, a lot of people have bumper stickers on their cars telling you what's important to them. And that's also something we do with our spaces too. Office spaces are good examples of that. So here you see this person with all of their certificates and awards and various things up on the wall behind them. And it's serving a function, a communicative function, because you look at where it is. So look, the person sits here, they face this way, and all of these things are behind them. They're facing out. They're for other people to see. Okay, and I think when you think about these sort of claims in this way, it's very easy to begin to think, well, maybe these are being manipulative. These are people trying to create a false impression. I think that's generally not what's happening. We know from Bill Swan's work, and Bill Swan is here at the University of Texas too, that that people generally want to be known. They're being authentic. They're saying, hey, world, I want you to know who I am, because when you do know who I am, our interactions are going to be easier if I feel you understand me and I understand you, and so on. So here you see doors are great places for identity claims. This was one of the dorm rooms in one of our studies. This is their front. This is their dorm room door. So these are identity claims. They think, be your own goddess, put a brain in the White House, etc. So these are about, right, this is before you've even crossed the threshold of the room, you have some idea of what this person is like. And the occupant themselves doesn't see this. They're on the other side of the door. They're not even getting to witness it. They see it for a second as they go in and out. But they're saying, hey, this is who I am, and I want you to know it. Now, another way we affect our spaces is something we do deliberately, but the goal is not to broadcast our values, it's to make ourselves feel a certain way. So, probably the way we do this most often is listening to music, right? When you're relaxing, if you're relaxing in the bath after a stressful day, you probably listen to one sort of music. If you're at the gym working out, you listen to a different sort of music. And many of the things in our spaces also serve this function, to try to regulate our thoughts, to try to regulate our feelings. Many of you on your phones or on your computer screens will have a photo of a loved one or something that's important to you. You'll have some significant thing probably on your phone, and you are the one who gets to look at that. That's not to show other people. You get to look at this every time you pick up your phone, and we do the same things in our spaces. These are what some people have called social snaps, just as like when you're missing your kid, you can just have a little kind of essentially emotional snack and look over from the computer screen, see your kid, and then get back to work having been replenished. So here you see two offices of an extrovert and an introvert. Now, which is the extrovert? What do we know about people? What do we know about extroverts? They like people. All right. So what they prefer music with voices in it. They prefer to be around people. They find people kind of energizing, exciting. So look at the extroverts office here. Look, they have people run out of space. More people here. And then you have the introvert's office. She has a tree over there and a duck. All right, so that's as far as they go. All right, so this one is just saying, look, you can see this whole thing here is down, regulate, just calm down. Whereas this is, hey, stimulating people, what's going on, excitement. All right, the third way we leave traces of our personality is in terms of, and this is similar to what David was mentioning, it's what I call behavioral residue. The fact that we engage in a lot of behaviors in our spaces, and a subset of those behaviors leaves a physical trace in its wake. And so we can look at these behaviors. Somebody's bookshelf, for example, is a good place. You can see what they're reading, how organized is it. Look inside the books for clues to those behaviors, and that will give you some idea of the sorts of activities they engage in. I'm going to do this. Here's one of the rooms in one of our studies. So here is a case of behavioral residue. This person, there is information here. There's about the sorts of things this individual did. And here you see, again, two offices of behavioral. This is the introvert who was my former student, Samir Vazir. They see, there's the tree up over there. Anyway, so look at these, but she's also, this is what my desk looks like this. She's also like, it has different levels of behavioral residue. You look at my desk looks like this, you're kind of engaged, you're doing various things, and then you just kind of get distracted and you put stuff down, these levels of sediment slowly build up. Whereas you look at this guy, look at this, look at that desk, there's the pencils in the pencil holder, the staplers are over here, the post-it notes are all lined up. Right, and these places are different because they do different things. They do different things with their spaces. And so we can look at those to try to get some sense of what those people may be like. Now, in the research what we did is essentially we sent people into people's dorm rooms. I sent judges into people's dorm rooms. They had never met them. They had no idea what they were like. Tried to form an impression of these individuals, and then we compared that with what the individuals were really like as measured by what their occupants said about themselves and what their friends said about them. And the short story is, I'm not going to talk about this research really in detail, the short story is that people who have no idea who you are, they've never met you, but if they go and snoop around your space, they're pretty good at finding out some things about you, about some of the traits, some things we talked about. So we talked about openness to experience, to conscientiousness, and some other things they're pretty good at doing. Now, so a lot of the initial work I was doing was kind of looking at how we affect these spaces that we're already given. While writing about some of this research, I was contacted by the next speaker who's going to be here, Chris Travis, who's actually the next speaker. And he does some stuff that's really interesting, as you will soon hear, where essentially he's sort of taking sort of psychology very seriously. He's I think a visionary architect, where he's taking the psychology and really implementing these principles into the buildings that he builds. Now, one of the things that he does is he essentially asks people to try what are the sorts of ambiances that you want to evoke in your spaces. So if you look, for example, here are some of the plans for his buildings. You see master sleeping area, and here it says tranquility heaven, and here rejuvenation of spirit. The master bath is private and personal. And so these, here the master bath, rejuvenation, master bedroom, privacy, passion, reflection. So these are the plans that are on the building site. This is there. So these are front and center. The psychology that he's trying to evoke is right there. Now, Chris had developed these methods in the context of trying to build things. He wasn't trying to do research. So Lindsay Graham and I started to work with him just to try and get this, make this approach a bit more systematic and broad, and look for some of the patterns. And we found that when we did a study looking at this, we essentially found that there are a number of ambiances that people want to evoke in their spaces. So these are the most frequently chosen ambiances from a long list of ambiances we give them. You'll see welcoming is very common? Well, because virtually everybody has a doorway or an entranceway or a hall, and virtually everybody wants that to give a sense of welcoming. But of course, as you would expect, these you get more than one emotion in each space. So for example, the bedroom, the top 5 ambiances here are romance, comfort, relaxation, love, and quiet. And of course, that would be different for a different room. And these are spread out. So where do people want to evoke a sense of family? In the living room, the dining room, the kitchen, the game room. Where do they want to evoke a sense of relaxation? In the living room too, but also in these other spaces. It varies depending on what they are trying to evoke. Now, so why do they have these different things? Why do they have these different ambiances? Well, I think one of them is it's the way we regulate our emotions. We don't, when we want to be more relaxed or have a sense of family, I think we kind of move into one area rather than another. And I think we use space to do that. I think perhaps space might be one of the most pervasive forms of emotion regulation areas, because we're always in space and we choose space to do that. Now, for many years I used to teach with Jamie Pennebaker, who's over there, and so here we are sitting. We used to teach a real course standing in front of real students, about 500 students, and we wondered if, well, maybe the different people sit in different places. So go back to the question I asked you to. So who here is extrovert? Well, is that extroverts or introverts? Extroverts. All right, very good. Introverts. All right, a lot of introverts. All right, who's low on conscientiousness? All right, that's all right. Who's high on conscientiousnness? All right. Who is high on neuroticism? Who's low on neuroticism? All right, well, it doesn't really support what I'm about to tell you in this room. But, so what we did is if everybody had a class, in the class, we had a class, and what we did was we measured where everybody sat, each class, we knew which seat they sat in every class, and we measured their personalities. So what we could do is over the course of the term, we could track, do people with different personalities sit in different places as a means of, well, for a number of courses. So this is looking at conscientiousness. So I'm just going to go very briefly through the 26 classes of the semester, and you'll be able to see how it changes. So what we essentially found is that overall, so I'm just going to go through this, is that these dots, when you see a dot, it shows that red is high, it's a heat map. Red is high conscientiousness, blue is low. When you see a dot, it means there's a significant cluster. And so here you see the conscientiousness going through, and you see, I mean, they're slightly different, but you tend to have a lot of conscientious people near the front. And so this is essentially what we found. We found that there was people were near the front. What's interesting about and that might be no big surprise. We found a number of other things that people would sort themselves with respect to features of the room. So, for example, the neuroticism. Where did neurotic people sit? Well, we found they tend to sit towards the edges of the rows and near the doors, right? Because neuroticism is a sensitivity to what can go wrong in the world, and so they just want to be out of there when something does go wrong. But another thing that I think was more interesting was we also found that people clustered themselves with respect to each other. So over the course of the semester, you begin to see these sort of clusters of religiosity, these clusters of political orientation. All right, I'm going to go to my question time. And we found that, and so I think people begin to sit like together, and I don't think they come into, I don't think a conservative student comes into the room and say, where are the other conservative students, I want to go and sit with them. What they do is they just become drawn, they think, oh, this is a sort of more comfortable, welcoming area to go into, and they kind of unconsciously move into those regions. And I think you probably have the same experience yourselves. I certainly do. I travel around a lot, and when I go to a new place, I usually go to a cafe to work. And do you go to Starbucks, or do you go to the independent place? And if it's anything like me, I go to a new cafe and I'll open the door and I think, these are not my people, and I close the door and go and find another cafe. Because essentially you want to be surrounded by people who look a bit like you. So with Lindsey Graham, we did this study where we essentially showed people profile pictures of people who go to cafes a lot. So we got these data from Foursquare. So these are 25 people who go to a certain cafe in Austin a lot. Just by looking at these people, can you tell what that cafe is like, right? And so what we did, it's quite hard, because look, this is a picture of a dog, that's not even a picture of a person, and this is like, I don't know what that is, that's pumpkins or something, I don't know what it is. Anyway, so, and so they were trying to guess the ambiances in terms of what the vibe of the ambiance is like, the sorts of things you could do there, and the personalities of the people who might be there. And then, of course, we sent teams to these places, and we found, and to measure what these places were like when you really go there. And then, of course, we compared what people who'd just seen the photos with what it was really like, and we find surprisingly strong convergence between people who've just seen profile photos of people who go there a lot and when you really go there. It varies for different traits and so on. And of course, this is somewhat similar to the idea of us sorting ourselves into aggregates of like-minded people, is that we want to be with those people we're like. We have, and we do that at the geographic level too. We certainly have ideas that there are stereotypes associated with geographic regions. Are there really, so we have like the laid-back Californias, the uptight East Coasters. Is there really anything to these stereotypes? We've collected huge data sets of personality across the nation, so we can actually look at these geographic differences. Are these stereotypes true? Essentially they are. This is a heat map of neuroticism, and you see that essentially like the neurotic East Coasters here, and the laid back in the West Coast, and down here. All right, and then I'm going to just show this one, I think, and then I'll stop. And then what's interesting, of course, is once you have this information, you can begin to look at the correlations across states. Of course, I'm not saying neuroticism causes cancer. I'm not saying cancer causes correlation. I'm not saying that. All right? But I am saying they are related, right? They are somehow related. And we have some pretty interesting data about why that might be. For example, the Rust Belt coal-based industries and so on, leading to both sadness and to cancer. All right, well, I think I'm probably going to be out of time there. So I think what I'm just going to do is, rather than do it, I'm just going to stop and leave time for the next speaker. So thank you very much, and that's all I'm going to talk about today. So do we have time for one question or not? To be honest. All right, we have one. Yes, go ahead.
Where do you see things going in the future? What are you currently working on? The big question you're trying to answer right now.
So we have a number of different things we're trying to do. I think we're trying to get a much more detailed sense of how people use space in a much more micro level idea. So we're doing a lot of work using the sensors on smartphones, so we can really track people every second of every day and integrate that with all the other information you get in terms of their socializing behavior, their studying behavior, their communicative behavior, and so on. And of course this can be very tightly integrated with the work on buildings. How and where do people use buildings, for what functions, and importantly, individual differences. Some people prefer to be alone, some people prefer to be in group, and I think that's something that's really key to integrate into this. Do we have time for that?
Yes, Steve. I'm fascinated. There seems to be a left-right difference in some of your diagrams, be they at national level, or indeed in classrooms.
Yeah.
The classrooms seem to be split,
Yeah.
left to right. Can you explain that?
I think we'd have to look across multiple classrooms, because in this particular classroom there was one it was the biggest exit was on one side. Most students came in from one side. So I don't know if, we did see a left-right, physical in terms of left-right politically, but I think that was just coincidence. I don't think